I had been Adrian's stand-in for 5 years, never once overstepping. In front of the entire room he laughed. She's just a paid plaything. What makes her think she's allowed to get jealous? The next morning I vanished, leaving only 2 contracts behind. One terminated the stand-in agreement, the other was the $10 billion deal he had begged for in vain for 3 years. The CEO went insane, scouring the internet for me, until he spotted me in my family's financial news, lazily pointing at his company. Buy it. It's an eyesore. Before we go on, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. At the family banquet, Serena, as usual, sat quietly on the least noticeable sofa in the corner. Then a woman in a champagne slip dress giggled and pressed herself against Adrian, almost curling into his lap. President Caldwell, those cufflinks are gorgeous. Vivian brought them back from overseas, right? How thoughtful. Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes flicked toward Serena in open provocation. The chatter around them dipped, gazes drifted to the corner. Everyone knew why Serena existed and what that existence meant. Adrian gave a short laugh. He didn't push the warm, fragrant softness away. Instead he lifted his wrist under her fingers and studied the cufflinks like he was discussing the weather. Yeah, Vivian picked them, her taste's always perfect. The woman pressed closer, red lips at his ear, her volume pitched so the whole room could hear. President Caldwell, sterling over their looks unhappy. Is she jealous? A ripple of stifled giggles swept the room. Serena's fingers tightened around her teacup until the knuckles blanched, but her face stayed blank, eyes lowered to the petals drifting in her cup. 5 years had taught her best how to show nothing. Adrian finally flicked a glance at her, light, detached, the way one might appraise a lifeless prop. He drew on his cigar, exhaled a slow ring, and behind the smoke his smile turned cruel. Her? Hi. S amused voice cracked against every eardrum. A paid plaything, what makes her think she's allowed to get jealous? Silence slammed down. Even the instigator froze, not expecting it to be that raw. Pity, contempt, delight, dozens of needles glinted in Serena's direction. She kept her head down, long lashes threw a small shadow that hid every feeling. Very gently she set the lukewarm cup on the glass table, no click, no sound. Then she rose. She looked at no one and walked toward the curved staircase. Her back was straight, her step steady, the same quiet obedience as every other day, like a weightless ghost. Huh, can't take a single joke? Adrian snorted behind her, irritated at his possession's lack of docility. He was quickly swallowed by flattery and laughter. Out of his sight, beneath the meekness he believed in, something inside her shattered that night, and froze to ice. The next afternoon the sun was high when Adrian descended, rubbing his hangover. The party had run late, the living room was a wreck of liquor bottles and perfume. He scowled and yelled, Serena, tidy up and make some hangover soup. No answer. The villa felt eerily still except for the pendulum of the grandfather clock. Louder, Serena. He kicked an empty bottle, it rolled and clinked. Only echo answered. What the hell? He yanked his robe open and shuffled to the kitchen, spotless, cold, no simmering congee, no silent figure moving between stove and counter. A flicker of unease spiked into anger. He fished out his phone, and saw an unread text. From Serena. Timestamped 5:20 a.m. His pulse lurched. He spun, bolted upstairs, and shoved open the door to her suite. The room was pathologically neat. The bed was military tight, the closet gaped half-empty, hangers dangling. Every bottle and jar he'd ordered his assistant to buy, products that copied Vivian's style, gone. As if no one had ever lived here. Almost. On the white ottoman in the center sat 2 pristine folders side by side. His heart hammered. He walked forward, fingers stiff. He lifted the first folder. Across the top, bold black letters, stand-in relationship termination agreement. His own flamboyant signature already sprawled across the line, from some past moment when he'd teased and half-coerced her into signing some absurd paper. Below, the line bore a decisive, forceful name, Serena. Date, today. At the bottom she had written in neat ink, paid in full, no further dealings. His breathing roughened, the paper crumpled under white knuckles. He flung it aside and snatched the second folder. One glance and every trace of color left his face, his pupils pinwheeled as if the hangover had conjured a hallucination. It was the East Riverfront development contract, the $10 billion deal he had chased for 3 years, the project he'd thrown every contact at, never even managing a sit-down with the other board, choked by red tape. Now the contract lay in his hands. Terms so generous they read like a gift. At the bottom of the last page, the same signature, Serena. Beside it, pressed into red wax seal, a dark gold emblem, an ornate, intertwined letter S. His mind blanked out, he stood frozen, a ridiculous, bone-deep chill spreading from scalp to soles. Serena, the woman who for 5 years had been obedient, silent, ordered about, labeled a plaything in front of everyone, she. Time slipped. When he finally jerked awake, he let out a wounded animal snarl, clawed out his phone, and dialed the number he had never truly cared about. "The number you have dialed is not in service," the robotic woman repeated. He hurled the phone, glass spiderwebbed across the screen. He prowled the hollow room, stormed downstairs, and roared at the empty air, "Find her. Turn the city upside down, hell, the country, drag her back." He poured money into the search, plastered every platform with a bounty so high it trended worldwide. But Serena had evaporated, no forwarding address, no digital footprint. As he teetered on the edge of explosion, his assistant burst in, white-faced, forgetting to knock. President Caldwell, the tablet in the assistant's hand seemed too heavy to hold. Out. Adrian's eyes were bloodshot, everything breakable within reach was already rubble. It's Sterling, the assistant shrieked, thrusting the screen forward. Global finance headlines. Adrian snatched it. A live press feed from Manhattan filled the display, dawn light bleeding through floor-to-ceiling windows, a stately conference hall. Center stage sat a woman. Sleek black tailored suit dress, spine straight, hair swept up to expose the long clean line of her neck. Behind slim gold-rimmed glasses her gaze was remote, absolute, unassailable. Cameras flashed, microphones bristled. That face, Adrian would know it cremated. Serena. But this was absolutely not the Serena he thought he knew. The headline screamed, "Mysterious Sterling Heir Steps Forward, Global Business Landscape Poised for Total Reshuffle." The anchor's voice cracked with excitement as it spilled from the tablet, every syllable a sledgehammer to Adrian's heart. Sources say the Sterling family's roots run centuries deep, its holdings circling the globe, its capital depth unfathomable, perennially ranked the planet's most secretive dynasty. This time, the heir stepping into the light, Serena, has reportedly assumed the lion's share of the family's operations. On screen, Serena, ringed by the world's top financial journalists, answered questions in flawless English, posture indolent yet dripping unquestioned authority. Then a reporter who'd evidently grabbed a last-second credential jumped up, blurting in Chinese a query that clashed with the macro theme. "Sterling. Sorry, intrusive question. Rumor has it you briefly worked incognito at a domestic firm, any thoughts on its future?" Say, the suddenly high-profile Caldwell? The room hissed at the amateurish tangent, the feed cut to an extreme close-up. Pale fingers tucked a loose strand behind her ear. At the question, crimson lips curved a millimeter, cold as deep space. She tilted her head, gaze lancing through the lens to skewer Adrian, who was glued to the screen. Her lips parted, the words rode the wire to every corner of the planet, crisp, lazily brutal. "Caldwell?" A pause, like she was weighing whether to swat a gnat. She lifted her chin, tone flat, as if telling a waiter to remove a stale canopy. "Take it over. Eyesore." Adrian felt his eyeballs ice over. On the monitor, Serena, now the Sterling heiress who could squash Caldwell 10 times with her pinky, was dismissing the empire he'd spent years building the way she might grade a street vendor hot dog. "Take it over. Eyesore." 8 syllables, featherlight. The camera moved on before the echo faded, as though she'd simply flicked to fly away. But Adrian's universe imploded into those 8 words, shattering to dust. The office sank into a tomb-like hush. The aide forgot to breathe, wishing he could evaporate or at least turn into the phone Adrian had just smashed, anything but endure this suffocating pressure. Adrian's lips trembled, speechless, brain looping a grotesque 5-year montage scored by those fresh 8 notes. She's just a disposable toy, what right does she have to be jealous? Take it over, eyesore. Paid help. Eyesore. Serena, go press Vivian's favorite Chong Sam. Eyesore. He doubled over, retching violently. Nothing came up but bitter bile, scorching throat, insanity. Humiliation, shock, terror, and an avalanche of absurdity tore at him like blood-crazed sharks. He, the mighty Adrian, CEO of Caldwell, had mistaken the heir to the world's most fearsome fortune for a stand-in, had ordered her around for 5 years, pressing dresses, brewing floral tea, ridiculing her as a trinket in front of his circle. He remembered slapping a card into her palm, "Study Vivian's poise." He remembered scolding her because the tea was half a degree hotter than Vivian liked. "You're not even trying." And, CL. Dearest of all, last night's sneer that would nail him to the pillar of shame forever. A feral roar tore from his throat as he kicked the priceless mahogany desk, It screeched back, slammed the bookshelf, and sent files and decor cascading. The aide flinched, nearly face-planting. Fake. Has to be fake. Eyes bloodshot, Adrian lunged at his computer, fingers spasming over the keyboard. Deep fake. Someone's messing with me. That timid Serena can't possibly, no way. He frantically typed sterling air. The page refreshed. Headlines flooded every feed, not just the financial channels but entertainment, society, every outlet that mattered. Mysterious sterling unmasked. Heiress Serena stuns world. Global wealth order shaken. The sterling queen is crowned. Top 10 Titanic sterling industries you never knew, each line item big enough to buy multiple Caldwells. Serena exposed, low-key straight-A student, perfect air trained for 20 years, photo of her in an ivy gown, eyes cool and sharp, timestamped smack in the middle of the years she served him. Air tradition, Serena once infiltrated companies as a ordinary employee, an oblique nod to sterling rite of passage. In every high-res shot she wore bespoke suits, gold-rimmed glasses, unruffled amid a murderer's row of finance sharks, those same features Adrian once traced in the dark, now crowned by a stare of sovereign indifference. Thud. Adrian collapsed into his leather throne, the chair groaned under the sudden deadweight. Sky and earth traded places. It was all real. He wasn't trapped in a nightmare, he had single-handedly turned his own life into the planet's biggest punchline. Half a world away. The press conference had just wrapped. Serena, ringed by bodyguards and aides, click-clacked toward her private green room. Stilettos beat an even, merciless tempo against marble, matching the metronome in her chest. Linda caught up, murmuring in English, "Sterling, Caldwell's stock is already twitching on the rumor me. LL, the street moved the instant your suggestion hit the wire. Adrian is burning every bridge trying to reach you, scenes, unstable." Serena kept walking, a faint smirk flickering. She nudged her glasses, the lenses flashed cold hallway light. Unstable? Not a shred of feeling. Has the takeover bid launched? Legal and MA are locked and loaded, awaiting your final signature. Linda handed over a tablet dense with acquisition schematics. Per your order, premium is negligible, speed is everything. Serena skimmed the clauses, finger flicking with surgical speed. She scrawled her electronic name. Tell them, 3 days, Caldwell's top shareholder changes. I loathe drag. Yes, miss. Linda hesitated. About Adrian, Serena halted, met her aide with a flat gaze. Linda, since when do we route spam through my office? The assistant snapped ramrod straight. Sorry, miss. I'll push the takeover timeline immediately. Serena resumed walking, voice casual enough to order afternoon tea. Also, empty the villa I used. Everything I touched, everything that collected dust, junk it. Eyesore. Yes, miss. Back home, Caldwell was a pot of pasta water set to explode. Markets opened, Caldwell's stock price nosedived, panic sell orders flying, the limit down barrier shattered like wet tissue. Every internal line rang off the hook, partners demanded reassurance, reporters swarmed the lobby like flies on carrion. Adrian's office, his new cell, even his secretary's extensions, everything buzzed with global sympathy calls, each one a fresh slap. He lay sprawled, staring at the crystal chandelier, installed last birthday by Serena, per Vivian's taste. Looking back now, the flicker of emotion he'd caught in her eyes, so quick he'd almost missed it, the one that had made him oddly uneasy, hadn't been envy or melancholy at all. Hell no, it had been naked mockery. She'd been watching a circus act. Adrian. Bad news. Another executive burst in, so rattled he forgot to knock. The bank just froze. The credit line we'd been negotiating, suspended indefinitely. They say we failed risk assessment. Adrian. The entire RD Brain Trust just handed in resignation letters. Sterling lured them away with packages we can't touch. Adrian. The SEC sent an inquiry, demands we explain the abnormal swings in stock price and any undisclosed material risks. The blows kept coming, pounding Adrian until his vision blurred and his lungs felt vacuum sealed. He snatched the car keys off his desk, staggered out, and broke into a run. He had to get out. Had to reach that mansion. Had to find Serena, no, Sterling, had to beg. On his knees if necessary. 5 years of history, sure, it had been one-sided cruelty on his part, but what if she still felt something? He floored the accelerator, blasting through red light after red light, suicidal speed hurling him back to the villa that had once caged his golden canary. Before the car fully stopped he lurched out, and froze. The front gates stood ajar. Professional cleaners in matching uniforms streamed in and out. In the driveway sat a hulking sanitation truck. A black-suited, white-gloved man with a clipboard stood at the door, voice flat as a funeral reader. Replace every carpet. Move the living room set, Italian custom, Adrian ordered it. Strip the drapes. Box and trash every kitchen utensil. And all personal effects in the guest room next to the master, he intoned, per instructions, discard. Two cleaners carried out the coat rack Serena had used for 5 years and lobbed it into the garbage compactor. Next came her vanity, nightstand, the light blanket she loved, even the paperbacks he'd once pushed on her so she'd feel more like Vivian, books she'd actually cracked open. Trash, every last piece, swallowed by the dark steel maw. Stop. What the hell do you think you're doing? Put that down. Eyes bloodshot, Adrian lunged forward like a madman. The steward, clearly Serena's cleanup appointee, lifted an emotion less hand to block him. Adrian, he said, polite yet arctic, we're conducting a waste removal. For safety, unauthorized persons must keep clear. Unauthorized? This is my house. My stuff. Adrian screamed, trying to shove past. The man remained a human slab of ice, crinkling his suit in distaste. You're mistaken. He slid a photocopy from his board. Yesterday afternoon the villa's title was legally transferred, gratis, to Sterling. Here's the duplicate, your autograph and corporate seal. Adrian's pupils quaked. He tore the page free and stared, his own looping signature, the Caldwell embossment, authentic. But when a memory detonated, half a year ago, half drunk, he'd told her to fetch some routine forms, scrawled wherever she pointed while mocking her for misplacing files. He'd strolled straight into her spiderweb like a prize imbecile. As for these items, the steward continued, robotic, Sterling's orders are absolute, anything touched by this house's heir is refuse. Including you. Adrian felt the words like a lightning strike to the sternum. She asked me to relay a message. The man watched Adrian's face drain of color. Game over, Adrian. If you can't cover the bet, don't ante up. Game over. If you can't cover the bet, don't ante up. A copper burst flooded Adrian's throat, he coughed a spatter of crimson foam. The coat rack shrieked beneath the compactor plate, splintering into kindling and wire shards, mirror to his pride, his company, his life. Ruined. Utterly. The steward nodded, already pivoting away. Speed it up. The place must be sterile by dusk. Sterling dislikes echoes. Yes, sir. Adrian stood statue still while Serena's cold, immaculate machine erased the last proof of him, swipe by swipe, like disinfecting a stain. Sunlight blazed, he shivered as if buried under ice. Fineness. Everything. And the 5-year stand-in game he'd started now demanded payment far beyond his solvency. His greatest regret wasn't crossing Serena. It was last night's loose tea. Ennui, why the hell had he spat the words just a toy? If he could spin back time he'd teleport and slap himself senseless 100 times. But remorse doesn't come in pill form. As Serena said, game over. He lingered in front of the gutted mansion, soul flattened to trash like that coat rack. The last whiff of Serena was being stripped and bagged by faceless uniforms. The steward even spritzed disinfectant where Adrian had stood, like he was pathogenic. The metallic taste still coating his throat, Adrian stumbled back, nearly tripped by his own coupe. Clutching the door, he stared at the hollow, alien shell of the house, tasting bile so bitter his intestines felt lacquered green. No, green was mild. His guts were knotted into double bows, sailor-tight and snipped short. He drifted back to headquarters in the same car, running lights, horn blaring, earning curses from every window he passed. He heard none of it. Only Serena's glacial eyes and 8 murderous words drummed in his skull. Take it over. The sight bores me. The nightmare downstairs had metastasized. Reporters swarmed the lobby lenses first, jostling until the revolving doors groaned. Guards formed a sweating cordon. Someone yelled, there, Adrian's ride, and the swarm attacked like sharks scenting blood. Adrian. Is Serena truly the Sterling heiress? Adrian. Any comment on Sterling's announced takeover of Caldwell? Adrian. Is it true you used her as Vivian's stand-in and humiliated her for years? Your stock's limit down, will Caldwell file for bankruptcy protection? Say something, Adrian. Flashbulbs detonated, microphones jabbed his teeth. Out of my way, scram. Snarling, he slapped the mics aside, forced a path with security's help, and dived into the elevator. Doors sealed, silencing the swarm yet leaving him suffocating. Inside his office, executives waited, faces the color of wet cement, clutching wads of fresh despair. Adrian. Sterling's takeover bid just hit the fax. The terms, brutal, th. ECFO wheezed. Cabbage price, the finance chief croaked, voice cracking. Adrian ripped the sheet free, and black spots swarmed his sight. Cabbage price? More like wilted leaf price, insult carved in block letters. Get legal. Sue them. Malicious takeover. He shredded the facts, roar rattling the floor. Legal's head looked ready to cry. Adrian, the bid stinks, but legally it scrapes the minimum, tough to tag as outright malicious. Plus Sterling hired Blackstone, Planet Class. We're bringing a butter knife to a tank fight. Another executive, voice quivering, added, and several of our biggest shareholders have already agreed in private to sell. The price Sterling offered them is a clean exit for their own portfolios. When the wall topples, everyone loves to give it a push. When the drum splits, every hand wants a pound. Adrian slumped in his chair, sweat soaking through his bespoke shirt, the clammy fabric cold against his skin. He was finished, his company was finished. Everything he'd built had collapsed in the breath it took that woman to utter a single sentence, so fast he hadn't had time to draw another breath. He refused to accept it. He snatched up his phone like it was the last spar in a shipwreck and scrolled frantically through the contacts. Once, he couldn't remember when, the woman he'd believed was Serena had caught a cold. Afraid of ruining the vibe Vivian liked, she'd volunteered to sleep in the guest room. He'd thought her dramatic, but he'd still saved the number from the old phone she'd used that night, hadn't he? There it was. A forgotten contact simply labeled Serena, old. His thumb shook so badly he misdialed twice. At last the call went through, his heart jackhammering, half terror it would ring dead air, half a begging hope for some miracle. It rang so long he nearly surrendered. Then, someone picked up. Hello? A familiar yet alien female voice, cool, flat, faintly annoyed at the interruption. Adrian exploded into stammering hysteria. Ching ching. It's me, Adrian. Listen, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was scum. I wasn't even human. Just forgive me this once, please. Think of the 5 years we had. Let Caldwell go, let me go, will you? I'll be your slave, I'll kneel, anything. He roared the words. Dignity was worth nothing against bankruptcy and global ridicule. A few beats of silence on the other end. Then, dripping unmistakable mockery, Caldwell? It was Linda. Sterling is in a board meeting. I'm Linda, her assistant. Professional frost. She kept this line specifically for unfinished business with her words, Caldwell trash. Is there anything you'd like me to dispose of? Adrian. He'd just bared his soul to Serena's assistant, an assistant manning a garbage hotline. Linda didn't bother waiting. Also, a heads up. Because of last night's public remarks about cheap amusement and not worth getting jealous over, you damaged Sterling's reputation. She personally doesn't care, but Sterling's name is not to be smeared. Therefore, separate from the acquisition, we're suing you personally for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The cease and desist will hit your office shortly. She asked me to pass on a message. Those who play with fire get burned. Enjoy litigating. Beep, beep, beep. The line cut. Adrian sat frozen, phone still raised, a monument to humiliation. Civil litigation? For slander? And enjoy? A second mouthful of blood, this time for real, spattered across the shredded takeover bid, blossoming into tiny red plum flowers of despair. Executives scrambled for tissues, someone yelling for a doctor. He shoved them aside, eyes bloodshot, and dived at his computer, fingers flying, devouring every scrap of news about Sterling, about Serena. He'd find a crack, any crack, one chance to hit back. Pages refreshed in a blur. An alert popped up, minutes old, from Vision, the top fashion glossy, exclusive inside, Sterling Serena, wealth is just a tool. The lead photo show. Serena in a minimalist yet absurdly expensive office, white power suit immaculate, fingertip resting on a document, gaze remote and sovereign. Click. Most of the interview was corporate philosophy and dynastic heritage, lavish with praise. Near the end, the reporter lobbed a softball. With resources like yours, do you have any indulgences? Collecting jewels, supercars, maybe your own island? In the clip, Serena's lips curved, beautiful, glacial. She leaned back. Hobbies? Once, maybe. For instance, watching a frog at the bottom of a well croak at the scrap of sky he called his empire, used to be amusing. Now. A pause, something almost playful glittering behind her gold-rimmed frames. The well caved in, the croaking hurts my ears. I got bored. As for indulgences, she brushed a non-existent speck from her lapel, gesture liquid with disdain. I just disposed of an eyesore. Annoying, so I tossed it. Filled in the well while I was at it. Peace and quiet at last. Boom. The last filament of Adrian's sanity snapped. Frog in a well? Eyesore? Fill the hole? Every syllable was a poisoned nail hammered into the rawest wound in his soul. His agony had been her real-life reality TV show, and when the ratings bored her, she'd simply thrown him out like trash and poured concrete over the set. Humiliation beyond measure, beyond history. Serena. A shriek tore out of him. He hurled the monitor. It smashed against the wall in a shower of sparks and glass. He stood heaving, pupils blown, veins throbbing in his eyes, one step from lunacy. Executives and secretaries scattered, screaming. At that moment his personal counsel stumbled in, sheet white, clutching a thick document stamped with cold legal letterhead. M. Caldwell. Sterling's lawyers, the summons, it's here. The lawyer thrust forward a second envelope, thick paper sealed with a wax seal that gave off an icy, subtle scent. Adrian snatched it, ripped it open. Inside, a card stiff as marble. A wedding invitation. Minimal design, maximum luxury. The groom's name was unfamiliar but screamed old money. The bride's name read, Shin Ching Ching. Date, next month. At the bottom, a handwritten line in graceful, familiar strokes, kindly come witness your amusement's wedding. P.S. Skip the gift, wouldn't want to soil the venue. GHK. A strangled rattle escaped Adrian's throat. His eyes bulged, locked on those words, body shaking like a short-circuited robot. The invitation slipped from his numb fingers, fluttered to the carpet. Next instant Adrian snapped backward, thud. He hit the floor rigid, eyes rolled back, white foam bubbling from his lips, limbs twitching, out cold. Caldwell. Call 911, now. The office exploded into chaos. No one noticed the elegant card lying trampled, a gray heel print stamped across its face, exactly what Adrian and the empire he once bragged about had become in Serena's eyes, a piece of filth she'd already scraped off her shoe.